I am Dirk Brand. I am an independent legal consultant and a senior lecturer, and I'm delighted to share some ideas with you about algorithmic decision-making and the law. I will discuss the key foundational values that should underpin future legal frameworks and make some recommendations for shaping the future of regulating AI in Africa. I will in particular argue that we should embrace ethical values such as accountability and transparency and promote a human-centered approach in the development of a responsible AI legal framework. You can ask yourself the question, how would you feel if an algorithm decided that you don't qualify for a home loan based on the profile it developed of you? How could we then ensure the responsible development and use of AI based on ethical values? This is the focus of this presentation. The current digital era is characterized by the diverse nature and rapid pace of technological developments such as artificial intelligence that impact all facets of society. The development of the law relating to artificial intelligence and the use of algorithms has generally been slow and unable to match the pace and scope of technological developments. Questions such as who is responsible when a self-driving car causes an accident and causes harm or death, or to what extent can the data my mobile phone collects about me be used by third parties? Or how does algorithmic decision-making affect administrative decisions by government officials? Are examples of important legal issues in this context. From a society perspective, there should be key ethical values that underpin future legal frameworks. But what are these values? What international initiatives are currently in process that African countries could perhaps learn from in the development of own AI legislation? I think it's important just to clarify some concepts in the context of this discussion. An algorithm is basically a self-contained step-by-step set of operations that computers and other smart devices carry out to perform calculations, data processing, and automated reasoning tasks. And the broader concept of artificial intelligence is about the development of software that can perform a diverse range of tasks normally associated with human intelligence, such as visual perception, speech recognition, translation between languages, and decision-making. Algorithms can be categorized according to their nature as either deterministic algorithms, which are those conventional type designed by humans and commonly used in a variety of applications, or it could be described as probabilistic algorithms. A deterministic algorithm is linear in nature and will always produce the same output given the same input. On the other hand, probabilistic algorithms include an element of probability and could produce a variety of results, and those are used in making predictions. If we talk then about algorithmic decision-making, it is concerned with decisions produced either by algorithms itself or based on algorithms. And examples of decisions produced by algorithms are programming for self-driving cars, or credit scoring software, or the spam filter on your email system. On the other hand, if we look at examples of probabilistic algorithms, those are, for example, used in medical apps for the early diagnosis of specific types of cancer or other diseases, and doctors would use that to get a better informed information about the disease and then make a decision themselves using the algorithm as an aid. So the decision would still lie with a human. Looking at the context of application of artificial intelligence, there are often concerns raised of how this technology deals with specific legal issues. The first one is about bias or non-discrimination. There could be questions about the application and impact of a particular algorithmic decision. For example, if the predictive policing algorithm leads to a biased profiling of a specific community. And this could be a design fault, or it could be that the input data already include that bias. Social inequality and prejudices in society are sometimes factors that creep into the input data and would then be accommodated also in the development of the software. Privacy is another concern. Huge volumes of data are utilized in development of artificial intelligence, and much of that often is personal data. Your mobile phone collects a lot of personal data about you, connecting different apps on your phone. And the question is, how is your personal data protected? And there are valid concerns that data subjects are not always well informed about all the uses of their personal data and can therefore not easily give their consent for the use of their data. Risk. Well, some AI systems are very risky and could potentially cause a lot of harm. For example, automated weaponized drones, software for sentencing in criminal cases based on a scoring system that predicts behavior. And in that case, it could impact the liberty and justice of individuals. Live facial recognition software that could limit the right to freedom of association and assembly. The lack of transparency is another concern, and due to the nature and complexity of most algorithms, in particular in the context of machine learning, it really makes looking into that black box of computer code, well, first of all, very difficult and not very useful for citizens and consumers seeking to establish some form of algorithmic accountability. And in order to protect the rights of individuals, some form of transparency is needed, without which algorithmic accountability would also not succeed. Now, looking at the definition of or description of algorithmic accountability, it's about the focus on the design and implementation of algorithmic systems in publicly accountable ways to mitigate harm or negative impacts on consumers and society. Various proposals for ethical and legal principles that should underpin the regulation of AI were developed during the last few years at different countries in the world. And out of this plethora of documents, one could identify some key ethical values based on a human-centered approach. And that seems to be the golden thread in all these initiatives. The first one is the principle of human autonomy, implying that some form of human control or oversight should be integrated in the design and implementation of AI systems. The right to dignity, in addition to human autonomy, is affected if people are deprived from the right to exercise influence over decision-making processes that significantly affect them. For example, in the case of automated decisions. Oversight over the whole AI system must be enabled by some degree of transparency, so specific transparency requirements. must be incorporated. In the context of AI, the issue of human dignity also relates to the principle of fairness, which is aimed at ensuring that algorithmic decisions do not create discriminatory or unjust impacts or causes harm. Transparency of algorithms is a difficult concept, but it's important to give it a particular contextual meaning. And in this case of artificial intelligence, transparency would have two elements, namely accessibility and comprehensibility or explainability. So enabling someone to get access to the system and get some degree of understanding of how the system is designed and the impact of the particular algorithm. Interpretability or explainability may also refer to the transparency of the processes by which the system itself was developed. So responsible AI requires a human-centered approach that includes the proper recognition of the right to privacy and protection of personal data. If we talk about accountability, that includes also the right to effective and accessible remedies whenever the development or use of AI systems by private or public entities causes unjust harm or breaches an individual's legally protected rights. Algorithmic accountability is, however, not an ex post facto report, but it is rather a systemic approach, looking at the whole AI life cycle. And any legislation that would be developed should take these ethical values into account, or ideally should be based on these ethical values. Now, there are some initiatives currently in process at different stages of development and adoption in different parts of the world. And the first one I want to refer to is the current proposal for an AI Act in the European Union. And this proposal follows a risk-based approach, differentiating between AI that creates an unacceptable high risk, which would be prohibited, high risk artificial intelligence, and low or minimal risk. This act also provides for AI regulatory sandboxes, which establish a controlled environment to test innovative technologies for a limited time on the basis of a testing plan agreed with the competent authorities. Then in America, there are various US states, such as California, who already have adopted AI legislation, while many others are in different stages of development of such legislation. And there are also suggestions for federal legislation on certain aspects of AI, such as data privacy and prevention of discrimination. In Canada, since 2019, there is a directive on automated decision-making, which aims to ensure more efficient, accurate, consistent, and interpretable decisions in automated decision-making processes within the government context. It also links algorithmic decision-making with a core administrative law principles such as transparency, accountability, legality, and procedural fairness. And the objectives of this directive are to ensure that decisions made by federal government departments are data-driven, responsible, and it comply with procedural fairness and due process requirements. Further, it aims at the impact of algorithms on administrative decisions are assessed and negative outcomes are reduced when encountered. And it also provides for AI impact assessments. And the last one I want to refer to is the recent proposal from the UK government for an AI strategy, which would then eventually lead to some legislation. And this policy document argues that AI regulation should be context-specific. It should promote innovation. It should be risk-based, coherent, linking already existing legislation that touches on different aspects of artificial intelligence, and it should be proportionate and adaptable. And key principles on which it is built is that AI must be used safely, transparent, and explainable. It must embed fairness and ensure responsibility for AI governance. Now, looking at these examples, it's important then to consider, but what are the options and the possibilities in Africa? The development of new technology, whether it's artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, blockchain, or augmented reality, or perhaps other new technologies that can solve problems in society or produce new or more efficient products and services, are by nature innovative. So any regulatory frameworks should not limit that innovation, but should rather support and promote it. And its focus should be on the protection of human rights, ensuring that key principles such as accountability and transparency and fairness are adhered to. We know that algorithmic decision-making impacts our lives in various ways, both beneficially but potentially also harmful. So some degree of regulation is needed. If we look at Africa as a whole, it might be more difficult to get a continental regulation compared to such an approach in the EU. It therefore suggested that individual countries should take the lead and develop appropriate policies and legislation, and not wait for a continental legal framework to be established. And in the absence of government initiatives, I would argue that it's the private sector, supported by academic institutions, which should lead the way in developing appropriate legal frameworks. And in this respect, some important assets in Africa could also already contribute to the shaping of the regulatory future of artificial intelligence. And those assets that I want to refer to are the AI Kenya initiative, linking different sources and expertise in Kenya in the promotion of artificial intelligence, the Responsible AI Network Africa based in Ghana, and then the high-tech infrastructure in the Cape Town Stellenbosch area in South Africa, where tech startups are blooming. While AI continues to change our world, the law should guide the responsible and ethical development and application of AI in the world. Thank you.